right, hello everybody. This is Nicole Whitlock with eCom Sellers, and this is the eCom Sellers Academy Etsy Workshop Part 1. We're glad that you're here. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am a single mom with 2 special needs teens. I have been selling online since 2014, selling offline since 2008. I am the co-founder and the creator of all things eCom Sellers related. I'm also the vice president of a nonprofit. So selling is one of the things that I enjoy. Helping other people be successful at selling is another thing that I enjoy. So hopefully you'll gain some value in this session. I'm just going to double check, make sure I'm live in the right room. There's my buddy. One of my friends just responded. I've been trying to get him. It's all right. All right, hold on just one second. I'm just going to double check and make sure that I'm live in the room. Okay, so we are. Dun, dun, dun. My phone is slow, y'all. We will edit this out. Oh, yeah, we're live. Okay, I think it says we're live. It flashed really fast. Yes, we are. Okay. All right, so let's get started. So this workshop is being taught from an Etsy perspective, mainly from a new seller perspective, really. So if you're an existing seller on Etsy, that's great. If you're a new seller, you want to get started selling on Etsy, we're going to talk about what it takes to get started. Some of the items can be, or some of the things that I talk about could be used on other platforms, just depends. But again, we're going to be talking about things pretty much from a new perspective, everything from creating your account to creating your first listing and things like that. The assumption is that if you are a new seller, that you'll create your account within the next 24 to 48 hours. So whatever activities we kind of talked through today, that you'll perform those activities to get started. So with that, by the end of the workshop, you'll understand what Etsy is, you'll know how to create your account and how to use the seller app. You'll also, and there is a new app. I forgot, I don't know if the screenshot is in here, but you might want to go to the Google Play Store. I may grab that picture so we can have it for part 2. In any case, create an Etsy listing, learn how to set up your shipping and how to get your products to your customer, understanding some of the Etsy sourcing strategies that you could be implementing in your business, also doing some keyword research, finding out what the integration tools are available to help you to be successful on Etsy, and then talking a little bit about print on demand and how to manage multiple stores. So today we're going to be covering how to create your account, how to install the seller app, how to understand and read the app, how to create a listing, what are the Etsy fees, a little bit of retail arbitrage and thrifting and shopping for profits, using that to be able to sell things on Etsy, and then sourcing a product. Okay. So before we get into that, I always cover mindset, because mindset is the biggest setback for those who are on the e-commerce journey or those who want to be an entrepreneur. When things get tough, people just want to bow out. When things get hard, people don't want to sometimes do the hard stuff, or they just don't have the mental strength at the time, because trust me, these last 3 years have been interesting for a lot of people. So our ability to endure different things is just not there in some cases, but I get it. Patience is a virtue. Patience is a virtue. Patience is a virtue. Just giving yourself the grace and mercy and the grace and space to be able to, step back and then come back and do this at a later time if this is not the right time for you. So don't be stuck in your head about this. You are a business owner. If you're taking this class, you have a desire in your heart to become an entrepreneur, to own your own business. So the goal is that over the course of this sort of workshop, that you at least have an understanding of, the different methods of e-commerce. We're going to be talking about print on demand. We're going to be talking about Etsy and some of the things you can do. You can also do a little bit of retail arbitrage on Etsy. You can also do a little bit of thrifting, because they let you sell a few different things that you can list on there. So this class is going to indicate that you're going to have to acquire something or buy something in most cases, but not all, in order to sell it on Etsy. There are some things that you don't have to buy in advance. When you're doing print on demand, you don't have to buy in advance. But I want you to be prepared for the fact that you're going to spend a little bit of money if you want to sell on Etsy. So there is a high probability that will be the case. In addition to that, I do encourage you to establish a budget. I encourage everyone who gets started in the e-commerce space to establish a budget, to build a routine, a schedule that you can follow over and over and over again. You've got to create a schedule. You make time for what's important. And so if running an Etsy store is important to you, making time for it is going to be paramount. So you have to build a real schedule that you can actually follow. You want to make sure it's tailored to something that's realistic for you, because everyone's schedule and routine that they follow to run their e-commerce business is going to be different based on what's happening in their life. So look at your life, evaluate your life, look at your available times to be able to work this business, and build a schedule that's realistic based on your true availability and any other challenges that you may be encountering at this time. So for me, one of my challenges is my son, and just being able to work my business around his needs and his demands, which are random and sometimes spontaneous. So taking that into account, my schedule is going to look a little different than yours, but build a schedule based on your available time. If you're in the middle of binge watching, or you like to play video games, maybe you take that time that you've been wasting, maybe just kind of, vegging out for a little bit, and you invest that time into your e-commerce business so that way you can turn that free time into money. So build a schedule. Next, whatever schedule or plan you put together, I want to encourage you to execute it consistently for at least 3 to 6 months. So plan out for the next 3 months what you're going to do in your Etsy business. Think about that in advance. Plan in 6 months, 3 to 6 months. Plan out what you think you want to sell, what's coming up that you want to make sure that you've either got listings created on Etsy for, but be consistent for at least 3 to 6 months in order to determine if Etsy is really for you, and to actually see the rewards of what consistency in your business can do for you. So there's different niches that you can sell on Etsy. You can sell handmade items, that's for sure. And that is meaning items that you actually make or design yourself. Next is vintage items. They have to be 20 years or older. That is what's defined as vintage. So it's 2023. Stuff from 2002 would be considered vintage because it's before, it's 20 years old. So it's, 20 before 2023, 2003, sorry. Woo, that's a lot of numbers. Arts and crafts supplies, arts and crafts things, print on demand, and digital downloads. So I want to talk about arts and crafts supplies. For those of you that are like short on cash and you want to list some items that people might buy, if you go to Etsy right now, you just do a search for like sticks and leaves, you'd be surprised. People are selling sticks, they're selling leaves, they sell rocks, because those are all, in some cases, crafty tools that other people might buy. And so if you're in an area where you have an abundance of natural resources available to you, you can bundle those up, put them in a jar, put them in a baggie, whatever, list them on Etsy and sell them. That's free items. Now, you're not going to charge like billions of dollars for it, but it is something that you can do to make a little extra cash. So keep that in mind. You also have, when it comes to arts and crafts, this is where retail arbitrage could be a friend of yours. There's stores like Tuesday Morning that's closing. And so being able to acquire some of the arts and crafts that are there and relist them on Etsy, you can probably get them below wholesale at this point because that store is liquidating stuff. This is one of those great opportunities to find things at a store that you can sell. Vintage items, you can find a lot of vintage items at thrift shops, resale shops. And so again, going into the store, doing some searching, you can sell those items that are considered vintage over 20 years. You can sell those on Etsy without any problems. And then if you like to make things, if you're talented, if you're creative, definitely consider doing handmade. Now, there are people that are doing print on demand and they're doing handmade, meaning they have like a big apparatus or machine in their house. Maybe they're doing 3D printing, any number of those things. They've got a sealer or heat machines and things like that in their house. So if you're making it yourself, you can list it on Etsy for sure. If that's your gift, if that's your talent. Now there's print on demand. Print on demand is one of those things that you don't have to spend a lot of money to get started with print on demand, and you can sell print on demand all day on Etsy. That includes books, that includes clothes. A lot of clothes that are print on demand get sold on Etsy, but also includes jewelry. So you can do some research by going onto Etsy directly right now and just looking around, putting in jewelry, putting in, when you see cutting boards on Etsy and they're engraved, that is print on demand. Now, some people actually have the materials in their house to do that. And there are other people that have accounts with vendors that will customize cutting boards and all kinds of cool stuff. And then digital downloads, if you're one of those people that you love to use tools like Canva or other tools like Adobe or Adobe Photoshop is together, PicMonkey, Pixels, and you like to make things, documents, checklist, PDFs, any of that kind of stuff, then digital downloads is an opportunity for you. As we go into the summer months, the school is about to be out around this time of the year. Just think about the number of like flashcards that people might buy so they don't have to buy at the store, so that they can download and reuse them for next year, especially if you have a lot of kids. So digital downloads is one of those. It's an opportunity to make some money right about now. And if you're thinking about, only if you're thinking about selling things that are like in the education realm. So those are the different types of things that you can sell on Etsy. And you, like I said, you can log onto Etsy, you can review their page on what you can sell here, and you can look around. That's one of the things that I encourage you to do, is to look around. You don't have to have an account to be able to go to Etsy.com and to look around. So there are fees to selling on Etsy. Etsy charges 20 cents per listing plus, hold on, I have to move the little thing here, 5% of the total payment collected, including the shipping price charged to the customer. So Etsy does, if they process your payment, so we have Etsy direct checkout, and you'll pay an additional 3% plus a 25-cent fee. And if the transaction is processed by PayPal, you'll pay 2.9% and a 30-cent fee. So with Etsy, again, there's 20 cents per listing, and you need to be prepared for that. And you need to determine whether or not you're going to put your listing up and just let it auto renew, being prepared to pay that 20 cents every single time it renews every 30 days. So how do you get paid on Etsy? So Etsy has Etsy payments. Unless you're not in the country, you live like in a different country that doesn't accept Etsy payments. It's located under Shop Manager, and you'll go to Finances and Payment Settings. So you want to, when you're getting ready to create your account, make sure you have your banking information handy, so that two things that they want your banking information for. One, so they can charge you that 20-cent fee that I just mentioned, but two, so that when it's time to get paid, that you can get paid and receive an automatic payment from Etsy, depending on how you set up your account. So for me, like the fee account is separate from the how I want to get paid account. They are two separate accounts. For some people, they're the same account, whatever works for you. Okay. And you can change your deposit schedule by editing it directly under payment settings. So again, you go to Shop Manager to get to payment settings. You click on Finances, and then you'll be able to get there. And your funds that you have that are available to you, the fees have already been deducted from them. So whatever number that's sitting in your account, whatever that dollar amount is, then that's your money. So how do you create your account? You can go to Etsy.com, and you can click on the option for open your Etsy shop. It's going to ask you your language. You're going to have to come up with a name for your Etsy shop. Don't worry, you can always rename it later. Doesn't have to be perfect when you first create it. I would encourage you, when you create your shop name, make sure that there's no spaces, no dashes, that it's not something that's already been used or already in use, because it won't let you use it anyway, and that there's no profanity. and that you're not going to get in trouble for any type of trademark infringement. So in other words, you can't name your Etsy store Disney or Coca-Cola or Nike. Like you can't have that in your store name because those are all trademarked. The next thing you want to do is you want to add inventory to your store. And so make sure that you go through the exercise to create a new listing or add inventory to your store. If you're importing from like a print on demand site, there's a lot of integrations with Etsy. And if you're not, like you're manually creating the listing, then we'll talk through that in just a second. And then you're going to indicate how you want to get paid, set up your billing. And once you set up your billing, your shop is open. So you want to make sure that you have your banking information handy when you create a store. And you want to make sure that at least one listing, you know exactly what one listing will be. It doesn't have to be the only thing that you sell in your store. Now, if you want to sell using the apps, you have to go to the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. I will tell you, I believe that the app has actually changed a little bit. So I'm actually going to go on my phone real quick just to make sure the app still looks the same. But you can go to your Google Play Store or to your Apple Store, Apple app, and type in Etsy. There should be an app. Let's see, I'm only seeing one app right now. One design. Nope. Etsy Business installed. So I've already got it installed. So Sell on Etsy is the app, and that's the picture. There's another app for Etsy Custom and Creative. So since I already have the one that we're talking about installed, I'm going to move on from there. There's a couple of other apps too, because there's another one that says Manage Your Shop. That's another one of the apps. So you have a couple of different apps you can use, but Sell on Etsy. Then once you find it, you want to click on Install, and that way you can install it. I would suggest that you create your account on desktop first. And then once you create the account on your desktop, then you can go and log into the app once you've installed the app on your phone. The other thing I want to encourage you to do, that if you're a new seller, like if you really do buy on Etsy, you buy stuff, you order stuff, I want to encourage you to keep your buying account separate from your selling account. That is what I do. There's several different sellers that do that as well. I do the same thing on Amazon, do the same thing on eBay. Like my buying account and my selling account are two different accounts. They are not the same. Especially if your business has an EIN, keeping those things separate is better. So if you've already been selling on your buying app, like your buying account, then that's fine. But just be mindful of the things that you do. And in the future, if you go and create an account on any other platform to be able to sell products, I would just encourage you to keep the two separate. Just a suggestion. It's easier to manage. Keeps things cleaner. So once you install the app, you'll click on Open, and this is what it'll look like to get to your login page. Once you get to your login page, you'll see some options at the bottom. So you'll have a dashboard, you have some sales numbers, you will have under more, you can get to all of these options, which is your shop and things like that. If you have email, you'll get an email notification here. So there's a lot of stuff that you can get to with the little icons at the bottom of the app. You can also see what's happening with your listings. So if you have listings and people are interested in them, you will see that in your history in your app. If you have listings that people are like, following or whatever, you'll see that. And then if you got sales, you'll also see that as well. And that's under activity. Again, if you go over to the 3 lines, sometimes people call that the hamburger, but anyway, you can also see some statistical data about your store from the app and the activity that's happening with your store, how you're coming up in the search engines. So all of this is in your app. If you haven't had a chance, like once you create your account, definitely log into the app so you can monitor what's happening with your business. And like a lot of other apps, there's a lot of features that are available in the app that, sometimes typically are only available on the desktop. So listing an item on Etsy, once you log into your account, you're going to you can go to Shop Manager so that way you can get to create a listing. But this is what a listing might look like. These are the listings, some of the listings that are on Etsy. So the first thing you want to do is you'll go to Shop Manager and you'll click on listings, and then you'll have the opportunity to click on add a listing. This is actually what really happens. This is what it looks like. It's not as big as this, but this is what it looks like. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to go find the item that you're about to list. You need to know what price it is you want to sell it for. You want to make sure you have pictures, that the background is cleared out, that you have really quality pictures of the particular item, that you have the measurements, because you're going to have to, in some cases, if it's a physical item, you're gonna have to ship it. If it's something that you're doing with print on demand, if you're using a vendor and you've integrated with Etsy, then that information is going to come in automatically. So once you have the details and you click on add a listing, the next thing you're going to do is we go back to add a listing. You'll see it's right here. So again, that's what it looks like. Okay. You're going to go ahead and add your images. It's going to ask you for that main photo. What's the photo that everybody's going to see? And then what are the other photos? So the suggestion I would make to you is make sure that you have a few different photos of your product. If you're reselling used stuff, like items that you found at the thrift store, make sure you have any pictures of torn places, or if their button is missing, or there's a little hole, or there's some discoloration, like make sure you include those in your pictures as well. And then figure out what your main photo is going to be. If you have the item that's like, I don't know, you can show it in a couple of different ways. So you can just show it with a white background, and then you can show it next to a specific thing so people can get an idea for sizing. An example of that is like putting something next to a coffee mug so people can determine how big or how small something is. So that gives them some type of relational connection to, oh, okay, I can figure out that this thing is about this big, in addition to the dimensions that you put in the listing. You can also make sure you include a picture of the image like in use, if it makes sense. So someone holding the coffee mug versus a coffee mug just sitting on a table next to, I don't know, a notebook. Like that gives them some idea how big or small, especially if it's an oversized coffee mug. And then the next is, someone holding it gives you an idea from a hand size. So if people are having a hard time figuring it out based on the measurements you provide in the listing, then having a couple of different pictures is helpful. So you do have the ability on Etsy to add a video to your listing. And if you want to do that, you can. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to put in your title, and you're going to put in your description. You also have to indicate your category. So this is what I will say. If possible, make sure you use as much of the title as possible. Make sure you compare other listings on Etsy before you create your listing on Etsy. Different platforms have different nuances when it comes to the title and also the keywords that are used in the title. So if you want your listing to come up, search for the thing that you're about to list. Review the titles, review the descriptions, review some of the keywords that you see in the descriptions before you create your listing. Try to use as much of the title as possible if it makes sense to do so. If it doesn't make sense to do so, then just don't try to force it. Don't create a weird, strange listing. They always want to know about the listing, who made it, what is it, and when did you make it, if you made it. So click on those drop downs and select the options that are appropriate for you and this particular item. Also look at the category. So that's the reason why I say go look at other listings before you get started, so that you have some idea of where this item should go, if it can go in a couple of different categories. Okay. Also indicate your renewal, whether or not you want automatic renewal, you want to manually renew it yourself, and the type of product, whether it is a physical product or a digital product. So if you're selling digital products, then the great thing is that you'll also have the opportunity to upload the item so that when people buy it, they'll automatically receive an email and they can go and download your product directly from there. So make sure you're populating the description, putting as much information as possible, looking at other listings that are the same as your product or similar. It's going to give you some insight into how you need to write that description. Then you want to include tags. Don't ever just leave the tags blank. Make sure you put those tags, populate those tags. This tells Etsy how helps people figure out how to find your product. So you have 13 tags. I want to encourage you to use all 13. Shape, color, style, function, what's its intended use, things like that. In some cases, tags can feel similar to keywords, but there is a difference. And then the material, what is this made of? That is optional. Put your price and how many of them you have. And if you have a SKU for this particular item, go ahead and enter the SKU. Once you've done that, then you will go ahead and populate the shipping information. And after you have populated the shipping information, then the next thing would be to put in the dimensions for the item so that shipping can be calculated correctly. Shipping is based off of the dimensions and the weight of the item. So you want to get the best possible price for the shipping. So make sure that you populate that, and then you can click publish and your listing will be live. Now, once you get a sale, the item sells, then you'll get a notification on your app or on your dashboard that says that you got a sale. Now you can go over to orders and shipping, and that way you can get your label. Once you go over to orders and shipping, you can order or get a label, and then you want to make sure you download that label when you first get it, or save it off so that way you'll be able to always have the label handy. Okay. I've gotten into situations where I've had to have the label reprinted and it was like a couple of days later. You don't want to do that. It's a lot of extra work sometimes. So you want to make sure you have your package weight and dimensions and the package type. So package type is like, are you going to ship it in a box? Are you going to ship it in a padded envelope? How is this thing being shipped? And then also the dimensions, which should default in from what you put in when you created the listing. Now, if you decide you're going to do arbitrage, arbitrage is one way, and I talked about arbitrage just a little bit at the beginning. That's one way to find items to put in your Etsy store. Thrifting is another way. There's a few different options or a few different ways in which you can find items to buy. So you can source items, as I mentioned before, like Tuesday morning is a great one. You can find those items that maybe they're art supplies, maybe they're clothing, not clothing, Lord have mercy, sewing materials, like things like that. And so you can go to regular stores, arbitrage stores, or even find some things that you need that you're planning on selling from mom and pop stores. Those are, different sources where you can get inventory, where you can find inventory. And then, of course, you can always order wholesale. Wholesale is always an option as well. And if you don't know, Etsy does have Etsy wholesale. So you should look that up one day so that you can see what's there. So some of the arbitrage stores that I mentioned are like Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Tuesday Morning, Joann Fabrics. I can't remember fabrics. I don't know why. Fabric stores, you got art stores, quilting stores, candle making stores. Your Walmarts and your Targets of the world have all of this. Like they have a quilting section, a yarn section, and a candle making section and fabric section. Like all of that's in Walmart. Target doesn't have all of those, but it has a lot of them. Liquidations and outlet stores or dollar stores. All of those are places in which you could acquire inventory to be able to sell on Etsy. If you're going to use thrift stores, learn their process, learn their deal days, learn when it's going to be most profitable for you to go in, buy a few pieces of inventory, and be able to, list those items on Etsy. Again, that's if you're going to sell physical items. If the thrift store actually has a newsletter, definitely sign up for it. And if you fit a specific category, like maybe you're a senior, maybe you're military, like they have specific days in which you can come in and get a discount from those thrift stores. So keep that in mind. So today we covered, understanding Etsy, talked about creating your account using the app, creating your first listing, and shipping your item to your customer. In addition to that, I gave you just a couple of strategies I actually talked about in a way before we even got to that section. And if you have questions, definitely type them in the chat of this video broadcast, so that I can answer your questions, whatever those questions happen to be. I want to make sure that you're getting the information that you need when it comes to getting started on Etsy or selling your products on Etsy. So with that, I hope this is helpful. Again, if you have questions or if you want to participate in the Academy live Q&A, type your questions below this video and we'll be happy to answer and respond to them. So with that, I am going to say goodbye for now. Thanks so much for joining us for the Etsy workshop, and we'll see you in part 2.